Hello and welcome into the Devils in Detail Football Roundtable for the 2017 season. I'm Hunter Robinson, joined alongside Zach Pekale and Killian McClatchey. We are going to be breaking down the beginning of the season. Their first game is this Thursday against New Mexico State. So Zach, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. So last season, obviously, the worst part about the ASU team was the defense. They struggled, especially the secondary. They struggled getting off the field on third and incredibly long amounts. Third and 15 seemed to be like 3 and 2 for the opposing offense. So with the new defensive coordinator, do you think that this is going to be a revamped and better ASU defense?
Yeah, actually, having gotten to attend a few spring practices and see the defensive style of Phil Bennett, I think that ASU is due for an improvement, though I think it's going to be a slow and gradual improvement because this is a very young defense. He's got nice pieces coming into their first year with the Sun Devils. He's got Chase Lucas, he's got Joey Bryant, but a lot of these players just have not played football under Todd Graham before for a full season, and this is going to be a long learning curve.
All right, so then Killian, obviously, the ASU offense started off the season just spectacular last year. And then, they dealt with a few injuries and they limped to the finish line. So Manny Wilkins has officially been named the starter. Do you think that that is the right move for this ASU team?
I really do. Looking at it, I think Manny Wilkins is the quarterback for the job. We can debate and argue whether or not he is the best quarterback on the roster. That's something that, the three of us, we could talk about that for days on ends. But if you look at it, I think Manny Wilkins is the quarterback of the Arizona State Sun Devils. He's been here the longest, and, I'm assuming he knows the system a little bit better than Blake. From what we've heard, the team seems to rally around Manny. He is their leader. He's been here for the longest, and I do think that he should be the quarterback. Will he stay the quarterback for the entirety of the year? I'm a little skeptical about that. It has nothing to do with his play. I don't know if he can stay healthy for the entire year. That's my biggest concern with how he's going to play. But, definitely he deserves the shot to be the quarterback. If you look at it, he was really good last year in those first couple of games before he did get dinged up, and then he kept on trying to come back. But, with him being the quarterback, this team can go far. And honestly, the way this offense is, whether or not you have Blake Bornett or Manny Wilkins, it's going to put up points.
Yeah, it definitely helps when Wilkins can run, which that is something that ASU's offensive line isn't known to be the best. So it definitely helps when you have a mobile quarterback. So Zach, staying with the offense, going to Kalen Ballage and Demario Richard. They are both going to be seniors, and they are both going to be looking to have big output seasons after last season. It started off looking like they could possibly be, one of the best 1-2 punches in the entire country, and then they fell off once Pac-12 season started. So are you expecting big things from them this year?
I'm expecting big things from Kalen Ballage. I think that you got small sample sizes because they went against weaker defenses like Texas Tech and California, who are not known to be defensive stopping, like teams that can stop the run very well. But at the same time, I think that in Pac-12 play, both backs struggled. Ballage is due for a big bounce back. He ran for the 7 touchdowns against Texas Tech last year, and then was non-existent the rest of the season. Part of that was because of some injuries, but at the same time, I think there was just a lot of a down year for the Sun Devils. This year, Ballage looks better. He looks quicker. They've experimented with his pass-catching ability, which we saw some glimpses of at the end of last year. Look for Ballage to have another monster year.
All right, and then Killian, going back to the defensive side of the ball. So the secondary, obviously, that's the point where ASU, like Zach said, there's going to be a learning curve. They are very young when it comes to the secondary. But the defensive line, some people are talking about ASU's defensive line actually being, a force to possibly be reckoned with. Do you see that, or do you think that maybe people might be jumping the gun a little bit?
I really do. Speaking of secondary, they can't get worse than last year. They were the worst in college football history, but we're not going to even get to that. But the defensive line, they do have a lot of returners. You got Christian Sam, you got Karan Crump. They're going to be coming on the sides, and Crump, a lot of people are saying they're really liking his speed off the edge. He's going to be a guy who's going to be getting to the quarterback a lot this season. And I really think the defensive line, the way that Todd Graham is a defensive coach. And so the way he likes to scheme his defensive systems is, we've seen it the last couple of years, and even though Phil Bennett's going to come in here, and kind of change things up a little bit, I'm assuming it's still going to stay the same, is you want to try and get pressure on the quarterback, force the quarterback to make mistakes, and in which case helps out a young and inexperienced secondary. And so I think it's going to be huge for this defensive line, they're going to be able to have to get pressure. And I mean, starting on this New Mexico State team, they've got an experienced quarterback. He does have some big wide receivers to throw to, so they're going to have to be able to get pressure on him, force mistakes, and I mean, just kind of snowball everything. This is a new defense, new in the sense of a scheme set or the way you put the scheme. So you're going to have to kind of snowball as the season goes along, because especially these first couple games, you have New Mexico State and San Diego State. They're going to be teams that are going to want to try to pound the ball down your throat. With Larry Rose III from New Mexico State especially, if you can stop the run, force them to throw the ball, and put pressure on them, I think this defensive line can be a huge key and help the Sun Devils defense improve from last season.
So Killian was talking about New Mexico State. So Zach, what are you expecting from the ASU offense against New Mexico State? Last year there were games where the offense looked amazing, and then there were some games where they looked, almost out of their league. So what are you expecting with this first game of the 2017 season, New Mexico State, Arizona State? What are you expecting from the Sun Devil offense?
Well, one thing I'm definitely expecting is for Manny Wilkins to deliver all spring, all summer, all fall camp. Todd Graham was so adamant about Manny Wilkins being his go-to quarterback. Now is the time for him to deliver. Last year, his first career start against NAU, it was a little rough, didn't look too comfortable throwing the ball. Wilkins needs to come out and make a statement and say, I deserve this quarterback position and I deserve to keep it. So I expect Wilkins to come out. I'm not saying he has to throw for 400 yards, but he does need to come out and throw for at least about 60% completion percentage and a couple of touchdowns.
All right, so guys, I'll ask both of y'all this question. So ASU has a very easy non-conference schedule. They face New Mexico State, then San Diego State, both at home, and then they're on the road at Texas Tech. How do you expect them to fare in these three non-conference games?
I'll start. Maybe it's just the pessimist in me, but I'm looking at it. San Diego State is a team that does worry me. San Diego State, they've got a lot of talent. They've got a running back who can run the ball really, really well. I mean, that was their strong suit of their team last year. And then Texas Tech, I mean, that game's going to be a shootout. I think everybody expects that there are going to be a lot of points put up, and that's whether or not, it's going to be whoever can get that first stop. But, looking at the other end too, though, this ASU team, it can fare well in a shootout. They can put up points, and then, the rush or the run defense seemed to be a strong point for the most part of last year. And so it goes both ways. Looking at it, you could be 3-0. You could be 2-1. You drop one of those games, or it's very possible you could be 1-2 going in to quite possibly one of the most brutal starts to a Pac-12 season we've seen in a while for ASU. Because you're going to start off with Oregon, who looks revamped, and you're getting into teams like Stanford, University of Washington, and USC, and that's not easy to start off your Pac-12 slate. And they could easily be, 2-1 looking into that stretch, or they could be 1-2.
Well, similar to how Killian said, the Pac-12 stretch is just brutal to open up the season. Oregon, Stanford, then USC and Washington back-to-back. That's not the way anyone really wants to start a season in conference play. But I'm a little bit more optimistic with how this team's going to fare in non-conference play. I think that Todd Graham has a good plan for this offense. And I do think as long as the offense is putting up points, which in these against Texas Tech, San Diego State, and New Mexico State, they all should be, I see this team getting out of non-conference play 3-0.
All right, so then we just talked about non-conference. You all talked about the brutal Pac-12 stretch that they have to open up the season. So how do you all think that they are going to fare in the Pac-12 in general? Not the Pac-12 South, but the Pac-12 in general. Do you think that there are going to be some moments that we see ASU, have that new look team on the defensive and offensive side of the ball? Or do you think that this is a team similar to the past 2 years that at the end of the year we're going to be saying, what's next?
I think early on in this season, especially when it comes down, like I mentioned, the Stanfords, the USCs, and the Washingtons, I think this team will get, they're going to get manhandled. I think just because USC, University of they are that good. But when you look at the second half of the schedule, once you get past USC, you've got Utah and Colorado. Those are two winnable games in there that you can look at. And then you get into the Oregon States and the University of Arizona. Those are games that you can win that are very winnable for this Sun Devils team. And so, like Zach mentioned earlier, it is all going to depend on whether or not the offense can continue to put up points. If they put up points, your defense cannot be not as good as long as you score. And so that's one of the biggest things. You're going to have to keep up and keep pace. And, it was nice, though, seeing Oregon State. They did play Colorado State this last week, and they didn't look too good. That's one thing going forward. Oregon State looked like a team. They might be on the up and up. Maybe they aren't. And so just kind of the entire schedule, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not this team really wants to go in and attack the Pac-12 or the meat of the Pac-12.
Well, I think that this season, this Sun Devil team is young and very inexperienced, but at the same time, they'll win some games that they shouldn't win. I do see them going 4-5 this year. While Killian was saying Oregon's very revamped, I do think that the Sun Devils will be able to beat them at home to open up Pac-12 play, and then they will lose that whole stretch, and come back to win four in a row to conclude Pac-12 play. 3 in a row, excuse me. They'll go 4-5 this year.
All right, so then obviously, you think they're going to go 4-5 in Pac-12 play. You seem to maybe not be quite as optimistic, but they do have, like you said, those 4 winnable games at the end of the year. But when it comes to a bowl game, 6 is the magic number, and that includes non-conference and conference play. So do you all see ASU making it to a bowl game?
Well, Todd Graham's seat is just a little bit too warm for him to miss out on the postseason again this year. I see the Sun Devils making it into a bowl game at 7-5 this year. Mark it now. You heard it here first.
As pessimistic as I have sounded this entire time, I do think the Devils will sneak into a bowl game. They'll get that 6th win. Hopefully they'll be able to get it done before U of A, so that one's not as stressful for everybody here in Tempe. But I do think they'll get that 6th win. And like Zach said, Graham is on the hot seat. A lot of people have been saying he doesn't get 6 wins, doesn't get himself back to a bowl game, he's not going to be here next year. So I do think he gets that 6th win and they go to a bowl game. Maybe it will be the Motel 6 Cactus Bowl again, but hey, a bowl game is a bowl game.
All right, so that's my final question. So this time next year, Devils in Detail previewing the 2018 season, will we be talking about a new head coach in Tempe?
I don't think so. I think for a multitude of reasons, I believe he will get the 6 wins in order to get himself back to the bowl game. I think the buyout is too much on Graham's contract. But I do believe that we will still have the same head coach here next season.
Yeah, I agree with Killian. I think that Graham has done enough in his first 3 years to kind of give himself a pardon for the last 2. He does need to deliver this year, or else the pressure is really going to be on the athletic department to make an executive decision on Todd Graham's future.
All right, well, you heard it here first. For everything ASU football, make sure that you go to devilsindetail.com. For Killian McClatchey and Zach Pekale, I'm Hunter Robinson saying we hope to see you again soon.